It is 6 o'clock on October the 8th, 2024, and this is the regular meeting of the Spitzer Board of Aldermen. In the absence of Mayor Williams and Mayor Pro Tem Sechrist, it is to the council board to decide who conducts this meeting tonight. Is there a nomination?
I nominate Pat Sledge.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, the nominations are closed. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your right hand. Those opposed, likewise. Motion carries. Thank you very much. The chair declares a quorum for this meeting. All of our board members are in attendance with the exception of Pro Tem Sechrist. She may be joining us by Zoom. She's having some health issues with a back, and so she is not here. I'd like to ask Alderman Miller to give us the invocation this evening. Please bow.
Thank you. Will you please bow your head? Heavenly Father, we come to you with heavy hearts, lifting up our neighbors in the mountains of North Carolina who've been affected by these floods. Lord, grant them the strength and courage as they face the challenges ahead. Help them to make wise decisions about their future and provide them the resilience that they need to rebuild their lives. We pray for those who have selfishly contribute to these communities, offering their time, resources, and love. Bless these volunteers who have come forward to help, and may their efforts be a beacon of hope and support. Lord, we ask for your protection for over all those who have been affected. Bring comfort to those who are grieving, healing to those who have been injured, and peace for those who are anxious. Let your presence be felt in every heart, and may your love guide them through this difficult time. We ask it in your name. Amen.
Amen. Please rise and join in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Are there additions or deletions to the agenda for this evening? Mr. Manager?
Yes, ma'am. I would request that we could add one item to the agenda that is before you. This is a budget amendment that is to reappropriate funds from our prior year budget that we had in a purchase order with our consultant, Kimley Horn, to proceed with the EB 5861, which is the Greenway Project feasibility study. That purchase order was erroneously not carried over into the current year, and so this simply reappropriates those funds from last year, and this would represent being able to start using the first monies of the $3.5 million NCDOT grant that we've had for many years for this project, and the work will help proceed with the planning, another step in the planning process to get us closer to a design.
Thank you. If it meets the board's approval, we will add that as item number 7. Is there, I guess I should ask for the motion to accept that. Do I hear a motion to accept that budget proposal?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad. Second?
Second.
Ms. Moody, thank you. That will become item number 7 in our agenda.
If I may, item number 7 is the consent agenda, I think.
After item 7.
Okay, so
It'll
I didn't know
change
if
to
you were
number
trying
8.
to add it to the consent agenda or after it, but okay.
After, I'm sorry.
Yep.
After number 7 will become number 8. Okay. For recognitions, my script says ask Alderwoman Patricia Sledge to make her recommendation. So let me do that. Recognition, not. I want to give a shout out to a team of people who put together in 3 short days an amazing amount of needed items to go to our neighbors in Western North Carolina. 3 communities, Granite Quarry, Cleveland, and Spencer, filled 4 pickup trucks, a cargo trailer, a 24-foot box truck to go to some of the isolated areas where other relief teams had not been able to reach. Our firefighters, EMTs, and police officers and staff collected and sorted box after box of food and necessities for these people who had lost, in some cases, everything. Some of the team have remained in the devastated area in search and rescue operations, which are now mostly search and recovery. Our citizens brought items to the National Night Out, North Arena Elementary School, and Town Hall, and collection sites to make all of these donations possible. The images our teams have witnessed and the photos they've shared will stay with them and with us forever. I'm so thankful to live in a community that comes together at a time of need so generously to help others. So once again, thank you to all of you who go above and beyond to serve our community. You are truly our heroes. Thank you. Ms. Moody, I believe you have some recognitions for us tonight.
Yes, ma'am. Tonight I want to recognize Dr. Welch and the Community Pets Mobile Veterinary Clinic in collaboration with Miss Angie Elkins and the volunteer team of the Rowan Neuter Scooter program. We were very fortunate to host them in our community on October 3rd. And I wanted to thank them as well as the Spencer Fire Department and the town staff for helping bring such an amazing opportunity to animals in the Spencer area. It was very successful. They filled every single spot for managing a community cat population that is rather large in this community. So I think that was really amazing. So we have some healthy kitties. It was pretty great to go over and get to see. I almost took a few home, I'm not gonna lie, and I'm not really into cats, so that was pretty cute. But anyway, it was amazing. We are really excited to welcome them back later this month. And it was, with everything the fire department had going on, they also set that up and hosted that, so really appreciative. I also want to recognize our National Night Out volunteers and the team this year. This is our 4th annual participation in the National Night Out program. It was pretty lovely moving it to October, not as hot as it typically is. This is the 41st year of National Night Outs across the country. We were one of 137 participating communities in North Carolina this year. I just wanted to recognize our sponsors, Cheerwine, Food Lion, Civic Federal Credit Union, and F&M Bank. And also our community partners who joined us for this event, the Whosoever Will Let Them Come Ministries, Spencer Moose Lodge, North Carolina Transportation Museum, New Hope Baptist Church, Terry Hess Child Advocacy Center, Communities and Schools, Spencer Fire and Public Works Departments, Novant Health, and of course I wanted to give a huge shout out to our Spencer Police Department because it was another amazing event. It was great to see our community out that night. Obviously we had a rather big one this year with our park groundbreaking ceremony, but really happy that we can participate in National Night Out. It was really great to see our families and our neighbors out. So thanks to the police department for putting that together for us.
Thank you, Alderman Moody. Town Manager Peter Francis, I believe you have a recognition for us. Is that as well?
Yes, and that's about our Race to the River event on September 16th that closed out Creek Week in Rowan County for this year. It was a great day for a lot of folks who got involved. It started out early in the morning and went all the way until the sun went down with a variety of events. For the bike ride and the race, those had probably 50 to 60 participants in them combined, and people really enjoyed themselves. But it was possible because we had a lot of people involved in the process. And I want to start out with some of our staff. Really, it was all of our staff. It was all hands on deck. But I'm gonna highlight a few of the contributions. So Joel Taylor, our Public Works Director, and his team, they installed approximately 300 barrels along Salisbury Avenue to create the safe channel for the runners and some of the cyclists to use, as well as coordinating of site sanitation needs up at our event at the river. Our police chief, Mike File, and the police staff assisted in many elements of the day, starting with the medication take-back event, intersection control during the race, escorting race participants, general security, and other logistics. Our fire chief, Michael Lanning, and fire department assisted with the race escort and provided EMT coverage and overall incident planning services for the event. Kyle Harrison, our town hall staff, did a great job facilitating our event planning process and ensuring that all of our logistics were in place going into the event. Steve Blunt stepped up to create a great partnership to enhance our pedal factory bike ride this year with some additional options. Our town clerk, Anna Canode Ward, helped out with event publicity. Heather Can, our finance officer, and the finance staff managed our finances involved with the event. We were receiving donations and other revenues, and of course payment of the invoices. And the result of that is, and we're still waiting on a couple of invoices, but we are this year's event was all about raising funds for Happy Roots, and we're hopefully soon going to be able to provide them with the proceeds after all the expenses are paid. There were a number of other partners, the Rowan County Health Department and Amy Smith in particular for the medication take-back event. The Pedal Factory, Mary Rosser and Charmaine Miller were involved in the ride to the river. Salisbury Rowan runners worked with us closely on the race, David Fries and Amanda Lewis. Nikki Black is next on my list, and she represented a number of entities, including Miller Davis Agency, Roco River Adventures, and the Yadkin River Keeper. All of those were playing pieces of the puzzle for the day. Our neighbors here at the North Carolina Transportation Museum were involved, and they brought a great display out to the river. Elaine Holden was the key contact on that. Happy Roots had a great booth set up. Ashley Hahnbarrier and her team there. Our friends over the river in Davidson County partnered with us to make this a event that spanned both sides of the river, celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Wilcox Bridge. So their county government, the Parks and Rec Department, and their Yadkin River Park Committee were all involved in that. And then, of course, the entire Rowan Creek Week Steering Committee involves a number of partners. Kelly Eisenhower with Rowan Soil and Water leads the effort of the committee. And we did have a number of sponsors, of course, the town of Spencer, Garver, Cloninger Auto Group. They really helped us out that day with shuttle service. The Forum, Novant Health, and Food Line. I want to point out that our local Spencer store made a very generous donation towards the event, providing the produce that we were able to provide to the run and ride participants. And then we had a number of vendors come out to offer their goods at the event at the river. New Sarum Brewing Company, Old 97 Kettle Corn, Kona Ice of East Mooresville, Queso Salsa, and Luna Pizza were all a part of it. So that took me a long time to list everybody. That gives you the scope of what it took to put on an event of that magnitude, and we look forward to continuing to grow that event in the future.
That's good. Good.
Thank you, Mr. Freitas. It truly takes more than a village sometimes.
That's right.
Are there any other recognitions this evening? Hearing none, we will move on to public comment. This agenda item is included to allow input to the Board of Alderman from any citizen who wishes to address the board without requesting to be on the agenda. Those who wish to address the Board of Alderman, let's turn the page, provide their name, address, and topic to be addressed. The board will listen and may or may not respond at their discretion, or may decide to place a topic on the future agenda. A speaker will be allowed 3 minutes to speak, and we have one individual who's signed up tonight. Ms. Hovis, if you'd like to approach the podium.
Good evening, board.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, so I know most of y'all. I like all of y'all. I'm just here to to stress something that I don't think you're sure you know of. It's called Nextdoor. This website has gone just like crazy. I've sent it to a few of you guys. It's kind of like a public comment of their own, where everybody's assuming what's happening. What happened on this one is they're talking about, first, let me do this. Let me give a shout out to the fire department and the police chief and the fire chief, because those are the best chiefs I've ever seen work here in the town of Spencer since I've been, from being chief. Now, anyways, and for the rest of you board members who don't know me, I'm just a resident who's been here all my life. I was in the military, law enforcement, ended up being chief of police before I left, doing the magistrate thing, doing some other things along the way with my retirement now that I'm retired. But one of the things that I'm big on is when I was on this board, I was always big about looking out for the community. Everybody's getting it upside down about this thing that's going on with the park. There is numerous assumptions about this. The speculations are because everybody don't really knows what's going on. You've got a few people who might know because they're even telling how much is put into it with the grants, saying that it was about a little over $2 million some dollars of grants and funds that were for this. Well, if you start looking at those kind of things, everybody's going, then why aren't our roads being taken care of? Powell bill is showing $175,000 on the budget, but our roads look like crap. Everybody's going off about what's going on, what they see, not just about this little park area. And so they're making a big deal. If you can get funds for that, why can't you do that for the streets? We got the word streets here in the county right now. And that's what everybody's seeing. That's what I see. It's the same thing for me with those board meetings that happen on Thursdays. I think that benefits the manager. It looks like there's no transparency by you guys anymore. You need to keep them on Tuesday so we can get here. Nobody can get here on 5:30. That's for you guys and for him. And if you can't do that, then just keep it where the board isn't trying to include the public. So I ask that you take those Thursday meetings, and if you can, just stop that, make it on Tuesdays, because it only benefits him. But as far as for us, I need for you to know, everybody's commenting about this, and they're talking about their taxes being raised up and saying if you can get money for that and allocate money and funding and find funding for that, why couldn't you do that before you raised our taxes? So for the rest of the board members, this isn't personal, because I like and love a lot of you up there, but this is just as what's being said. And if you're elected official, just know, don't forget about the people that's here.
Thank you, Ms. Hovis. Is there anyone else who intended to speak tonight? Please state your name. Please state your name and your address, please.
Name is Bob Bish, 400 North Yakin. Good morning. Good afternoon. I wasn't able to join you for the Creek Week celebration and the night out. I was just coming back from Texas, visiting 3 of my 10 grandkids, and I couldn't get back in time. But while I was away, I was concerned about the conditions, the weather conditions that were happening in North Carolina. And sometimes when you're out of town and you don't have the local news or any type of way of finding out what's going on in your area, you kind of nervous about it. So all the time that I was away, I was worried about what was happening with Spencer, and I couldn't find out. But what I wanted to know is, given the fact that there are so many towns that have been destroyed by the misdirections of water and flooding and so forth, is there a particular plan for the town of Spencer? Like, do we have an emergency site where everybody goes to in case something happens? Or are there any routines, any procedures that exist for a town like that? We're pretty secluded. We're away from the mountains and we're away from the coast. But before I got here, Spencer has been hit with a hurricane. So I wanted to know what type of emergency procedures do we have for the town of Spencer? And if we don't have any, is there something that we can do to get that ball rolling, get that started, so that, and make it widely known so that all the residents can feel that should something happen, they know exactly how to behave and how, whether they need to leave or go or assemble or prepare or whatever, right? So that's what I'd like to find out, right? The second thing is in regards to the comment period, I know you have comment period right after your opening, but is there a way that you can also have a comment period after the meeting has started? Because sometimes a person may want to speak about some of the items that you are discussing at that meeting's agenda. And so I'm thinking just before you close, that you can have an additional comment period, and especially to accommodate people that may come in late or cannot make it for their early opening. So those are the things I have. 24 seconds. I'll leave early. Good to see you back. See?
Good to see you, Bob.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Oh,
you.
I also wanted to get an update on what's happening with the chickens.
Chicken.
Thank you, Mr. Bish. Do we need to address any of that at this point, or?
It's your pleasure. The board's pleasure.
Yeah, let's do it. Do we have plans as far as I know we do.
Who would have the best knowledge of that?
Well, and so you wanted me to talk a little bit about our plans in case of hazards.
Correct.
Of course, us being a small town, our resources are such that we work closely with our partners and other entities, including the county, when we look at planning for these sorts of things. And right now, there is a process that happens every 5 years underway to update a hazard mitigation study or a hazard mitigation plan that is for both Rowan and Iredell counties. That process is in the works, and there's been some public involvement as part of that already. There is a survey out there that people can contribute to if they want to have their particular concerns brought up through that process. But as a staff, we're currently working through looking at the plan from 5 years ago and offering up comments. And for example, there's certain things on that were submitted by the town of Spencer 5 years ago related to improving our public safety manpower. We've done that. There's things that are still in the works there that we're talking about, improvements to some of the NCDOT facilities that cross the creek, 3rd Street and 7th Street. So those are the sorts of high-level things that are in the works already that we continually do. In terms of the other big piece of that puzzle that I'll mention, and I think a lot of folks are familiar with, is we're working with a consultant, Hazen, on a town-wide stormwater master plan and management. It's a stormwater assessment, inventory assessment, and a stormwater management plan that going forward will help us make sure our infrastructure is able to keep up as best you can. When you have a 1,000-year flood in your area, nothing's going to be able to keep up with it, right? So then that goes to the how do we mitigate those hazards. But those two pieces are major things that we're involved with to try to make sure we're staying on top of it as best we can.
Thank you, Mr. Francis. I believe too that you can register with Rowan County for alerts, and you can go on to their website and sign up for alerts. You get all sorts of things, such as road closures, incidents that happen, and so that's something that is maybe a small help. It's not quite a disaster plan like you might be talking about, but that will keep you somewhat informed about what's going on in the county.
We do as well have our town Text My Gov system. On Friday, we were trying to make use of that when we thought we were going to have water cut off for a while due to a water main issue. Fortunately, that was able to be repaired without anybody having significant water pressure issues, but I know we did. And Anna, I don't know if you know off the top of your head how many contacts we have signed up in there, but we would really encourage people to engage with that, because whether it's that or you know, if something comes up with garbage or anything, it's a really quick way that if you're not following us on social media, we can push something out to you through that text notification process.
Is it possible, could we put a reminder about that program, and for people who may need it, some assistance on where you go to get signed up for that, maybe in the next town newsletter? Could we do that? Because it is an amazing service that we offer here, and people should really be aware of it so they can take advantage of it. As someone who was out of town and got the notification, it was great.
Very good.
Just a general question about the stormwater aspect of this, and it may be that I just have to wait like everyone else, but and it's an open-ended question. You all may know, is the GIS flood zone, is that built around the 1,000-year floodplain? How does that, what is encompassed in that? Do y'all know? Okay, and I bring that up because, you know, with all this really bad stuff in the mountains, I just got curious and looked at the Yadkin high water marks, and of course the 1916 storm that everyone talks about in the mountains was also the highest recorded level for the Yadkin here, and I charted that with where that would be with where I am, and if we had that, I mean, I might be fishing off my back porch. So I mean, which kind of surprised me a little bit. And so I, you know, I think about 6th Street, I think about 3rd Street, you know, I think about some of the folks kind of back in where I am on the, you know, the back ends of 4th and 5th Street. You know, if we had a really, really, really serious storm, you know, I think maybe Matthew or Florence was the highest in the last 20 or 30 years here. I mean, there might be more flooding than people realize on that kind of that back part of the town. I just wondered if, you know, what we've done to kind of let people know about that. Just is more food for thought or, you know, than a question, but I mean that's you know, Mr. Brish brings up a really good question that I honestly I didn't really think about until I looked at the GIS and the high water mark and how that might reflect on the, you know, where I am. But
And I think if the mayor were here, he may be able to speak from his professional capacity on some of this, that the way the Yadkin River and all of the lakes in the basin are managed now. And of course, we saw what happened along the Catawba Basin with some of those managed lakes. You know, on the downstream of those lakes appears to be some of the more challenging areas to be in these situations when the flow has to go somewhere. But if you think back to 1916 and whatever may have happened here with the Yadkin River's managed a little differently now because of the way that Duke Energy's process is. So it's a good question, but I suspect that may be impacted some now in a different way than it did back then.
Thank you. Is there a motion to close the public comment?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Moody. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Moore, Mr. Miller. Sorry. All those in favor, please indicate. Those opposed, motion passes. Okay, we're now to our consent agenda. That's the first order of business for us. The items listed are believed to be non-controversial and administrative in nature. There will be no separate discussion of the items unless an alderman or citizen requests and is granted to speak. The items will then be removed from the consent agenda and considered individually. Otherwise, all items will be enacted by one motion. Is there anyone who wants to remove an item from the consent agenda for further discussion? If not, may I call for a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as is.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Thank you, Mr. Muhammad. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed, no. Motion carries. We will now hear from our financial officer, Heather Kahn, in regard to the budget amendment, budget ordinance item that's been added.
Good evening. You guys have the agenda cover sheet. This was a PO that was issued in February of '24. And then the planning of that EB 5861, the feasibility study. There were some things that had to go on before that took place, and it was voided, and we needed to reissue that, but it wasn't reissued and carried over, so that's why we're doing that now for that.
Are there any questions? Have you had a chance to look at this?
Yeah.
Okay, is there a motion to approve this budget amendment?
Make a motion that we approve this budget amendment 24-10.004.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Moody. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed, no. Ms. Khan, did you have some comments?
Fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The motion to amend this budget amendment has been approved. We will now hear from our planner, Mr. Harris.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So the next item on the agenda is consideration of a historic preservation incentive grant in the amount of $2,000 to Tom and Caroline Green. I wanted to point out, y'all already approved a grant in your consent agenda because there was no issue with that. The reason this item, I requested that it should go on the main agenda is because there is one sort of caveat with the eligibility of the applicant, which I'll talk about. So I did provide y'all a memorandum describing the situation in this case. So, of course, I always go back to the basics. The town offers a grant to help owners of historic properties, whether you're in the historic district or you're outside the historic district and you have a home that's older than 50 years, you are eligible for up to $2,000 for exterior repairs. And it's, like I've said, it's a pretty modest grant, but it does provide enough to push some people who maybe were previously considering a project but needed a little bit of help to do that project. So in this case, the applicants have applied for the grant for the repair and reconstruction of the front porch. The porch of the house is an original wood tongue and groove porch floor, and it had deteriorated to the point where it needs to be replaced. And so the applicants are asking for a $2,000 grant to support the cost of that project. Now, the caveat that I mentioned earlier is that the way the program was designed and the way the program guidelines are written, it's restricted to applicants who are owner occupied. So the household has to be occupied by the person who's the applicant and by the person who receives the funds. In this case, the owners are Tom and Caroline Green. Caroline is with us tonight, but her son lives in the house. And it's actually listed as the owner is an LLC, but it's owned by the family. The family have owned the house for, I think, 90 years plus. It's been in the family for a long time. And of course, in my view, this is just a situation where the parents are doing a repair for their son, even though they don't technically meet the requirements of the program with it being owner occupied. I think there could be an argument that it still meets the spirit and the intent of the program. And I listed a couple of reasons why y'all might consider approving it notwithstanding. Of course, the applicants did follow the appropriate permit process. They did seek and receive a certificate of appropriateness permit before doing the work. The HPC has reviewed the grant request. Now, I will say at the HPC meeting, they did not make a recommendation on approving or denying this particular grant. Usually a grant request would come with a recommendation to you. Because of the question of eligibility, the HPC didn't feel comfortable to either recommend approval or recommend denial. So it's coming to you without a recommendation, just because of the technical questions. And this project, again, if you're looking for reasons to consider approving, it is a demonstrated need. It's an accessibility need for safety. This isn't something like aesthetics where they're just painting something. They needed to make repairs for the safety of the gorge. And I guess the last thing I would say is, of course, I did let the owner know about the grant. I'm the one who recommended it to them when they came to get a permit. So I feel a little bit responsible of taking them down this path without realizing that the owner was not the occupant of the household. And of course, to the owners, as stated previously, that it is not an income-generating property. It is where their son is living, and the home is in the process of being transferred to the son. And so if y'all approve the grant, it would basically just be a grant to mom and dad for the repair at the son's home, is basically the way I would recommend they came out. Do you have any questions for me about this grant? Caroline is here if you want to speak to her, but if not, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have about this.
Ms. Green, do you have anything that you wanted to chat with us about before we vote? Not to put you on the hot spot, but if you're like, I wanted to talk.
Yeah, let her come forward.
Caroline Green, I'm at 319 South Whitehead. Of course, we're talking about 409 South Spencer Avenue. Just to give you a real quick history. Sadie Sasser Baker moved there in the mid-30s with her 2 young sons and her new husband, Mr. Brown, which gave her the nickname Brownie. I still call it Brownie's house to this day. Her 2 young sons lived here in Spencer their whole lives. Walt Baker's name's on the field house. Bill Baker, also very, solid citizen, volunteer firefighter. Bill's son, Jay, who I was married to at one point, is the father of my son, who lives in the house at this current time. There's been a Baker living there for, I don't think it's 90, more like 88 years, give or take a few years. The LLC came about because we were buying houses here in Spencer, 2008, 2010, and we renovated. I wasn't a very good person for a landlord. I let people get away with too much. So I decided to sell those houses off. But we purchased that one during that time because when Brownie died, she was 101. Everybody was grown, living their own lives, and they couldn't sell the house. So we bought it from the Baker family. Even though we were divorced, we're still on good terms. So we bought it during that time and put it in the LLC. So that's why it was in an LLC instead of just our names. Is there anything else you want to know? I'm not sure that I made everything clear. I'm rattling.
Kyle mentioned that you're in the process of maybe transferring the house to your son.
We are. We're actually going to keep the LLC. We were thinking about not, but we're looking at buying some commercial property, so we want to leave that intact. When we're talking to the lawyer about this other deal that we're purchasing, we're going to ask him about what do we need to do to get that without my son having to pay some sort of huge tax bill or whatever. There's always the complications that go along with that.
I asked because I was going to suggest if it was imminent that if you wouldn't object to if the board was inclined to consider this, to make it conditional on that transfer, so then it becomes a qualifying property and you don't have to consider whether to sort of suspend the qualification standards. It's a difficult position. I appreciate you, Kyle.
No,
I appreciate why we're here, and I think the spirit and intent is a good way to present it. My only question is that if this is a grant that's going to be owner occupied and you're suspending it for one LLC to have someone who lives in it, I would anticipate you're going to get a few more of those. And so it presents a dilemma downstream. And so that was my question, is whether we could get more information about that potential transfer. That was gonna be my suggested fix for it. It's just to approve it conditioned on the transfer taking place within 90 days or whatever.
Let me just say one thing. I know these people personally, and it's a good, close family. I know the son real well as far as he was in our scout troop, so I know him very well. I don't have a problem with this issue, but I kind of agree with our attorney there. Maybe conditionally we need to put that. I don't think you have a problem with that, would you?
I don't have a problem with it. I don't know that we can get it done in 90 days, but we would certainly try to.
If I could add in, the way we structure the grants is after this step, then there's a grant award process we go through. We issue a purchase order to the grant recipient, and then at the end of the process, once the project's done, the money's been spent, receipts turned in, etc., at that point is when the funds are expended. So in my mind, I don't know what your timeline is on the project, but it could be structured that this is accomplished through that same process where we can go ahead with an award, and as part of the award letter, that transfer, you not only have to turn in the receipt of, actually, it's because it's a matching grant. So you turn in a receipt and you get reimbursed 50% up to a certain amount. That's one piece of it, but then also completing this transfer could be the other piece of it at that end of it, and not to hold anything up now.
I completely understand whichever decision you guys make, one way or the other. But I can assure you that it was a lot more than $2,000. Work nowadays very expensive, so it's a lot.
Yeah.
So anyway, if you have more questions, just let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's all. If you have any questions, otherwise, feel free to deliberate.
And just to, I know the answer to this, but just so we're, everyone playing along, this money's already budgeted. We're not,
Correct.
This is not spending new money. This is not taking from something else. This is budgeted money for this purpose.
Correct. This is an existing program that y'all fund annually, and we still have money this program year to spend on projects.
And according to the application, the total project cost here, it looks like $6,200 plus. So we're talking the $2,000 being a small portion of the total of the cost. So what is your pleasure?
Well, I'd like to make the motion that we approve it along the lines what our attorney has put it as conditional as far as that goes. I think I don't know how to really word it. Maybe Jay can do a better job.
Yeah, I think to give us more time to explore it, I think you can approve it subject to a transfer occurring within 6 months unless extended by the board.
Okay,
And that way you give some flexibility to the owners to work with their son and figure it out.
Okay.
that's my motion.
Okay, so the motion is to approve the request with conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Moody. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed, no. We have 4 and 1. All right, the motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Harris. Did you have anything else you wanted to say?
Well, yeah. Well, not to preempt, but to get into the next item, I think we're already on departmental reports.
Yes.
So
we are.
I'll skip the line and get in front of Steve this time.
I'm sorry, what's going on over here?
Yeah.
So Trunk or Treat is happening on Halloween Day, which is Thursday, October 31st. It'll be from 5:30 to 7:30. This is our 3rd year in partnership with the Rowan County Department of Social Services. This has turned into one of our largest events every year. The first year we even did it, we had hundreds of people come out. Second year, even more. We're anticipating even more this year. If anyone is interested in signing up to be a trunk, you can go to spencer.nc.gov/Halloween, and we have a lovely informational page on there. We have this flyer which is available. We changed the color scheme, made it colorful this year, even more colorful. I don't know why I was compelled to put pinks and greens and oranges on that. I was just in that kind of mood. So anyway, we're going fun with Trunk or Treat this year. I would encourage everyone who is interested that we do have guidelines for the types of candy that you can and cannot give out. We have guidelines on decorating, when you need to be in the parking lot to set up. Of course, this year we have the new park under construction, so Rob and Beth Nance have kindly allowed us to use their portion of the parking lot. So it'll be same place, just over on the other side of the construction. And we'll have everything clearly marked and delineated on the day of the event. Of course, just share it on Facebook. We want this to be a big event every year, getting bigger and bigger every year. Yeah, any questions?
You know how many you're anticipating this year? Because I have to put my candy order in. Just one.
We've done
I
like
ran out
rough
last
estimates of like 400 to 500 last year.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it was a lot.
I
It's
think
a
that's
huge
what you
event.
told me. I'm just going to say I ran out last year prepping for that, so I better do.
And social services they will,
Yeah.
yeah. We needed a lot of candy last year. Social services brought the candy. They provide, I don't know, thousands of pieces of candy. I don't know how much, but it's always good to bring more because as soon as I say we have enough candy, we're going to run out. And people can also sign up online at spencernt.gov/Halloween. We have a Microsoft form you can use to sign up there as well.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Thank you.
Now we'll go to our departmental reports in order. Mr. Blunt?
Thank you, members of the board. You have my written report for activities in the planning department this past month with no humor, and I apologize for that. I'll get back on that this coming month. Just wasn't a very funny month in Spencer for some reason. But while I'm here, we got a little time. I will address two issues. One of them apparently is the most important issue in Spencer this past month has been chickens. And I get phone calls daily about our chicken pilot program. To date, I have sent out 7 permit application forms. We have had 5 of them filled out and submitted back to me. I have approved 4 of the permit forms. One of them is pending concerning what has turned out to be the sticking point in the whole program is the fencing requirement. We've tried to follow the spirit of the ordinance, which is to protect neighbors from the intrusion of chicken smells and chicken noises. And we've tried to do it selectively with the spirit of the ordinance in mind. The ordinance says a 6-foot privacy fence anywhere the chickens are going to run. That sometimes doesn't make sense when people don't have neighbors. They back up to wooded areas and there's nobody to protect. So we're working with people as best we can. We have stumbled into a problem where people have contacted their neighbors and the neighbors would love to see chickens. And they come back and say, well, why should I put up a privacy fence if my neighbor wants to see the chickens? And my only answer is that's the way the ordinance was written. So I have to enforce the ordinance as it's written, at least to the spirit of the ordinance. So we have enough, you approved 12 spots in the program. I think that 5th one will eventually get approved. So we're about halfway there to filling up the program. To my knowledge, only 1 of the 4 has proceeded to get chickens. Don't know about the other 3. We're going to go check them periodically and see how things are looking. The first one that got chickens is pretty nice. You know. And if my wife sees that one, we'll probably have chickens at the Blunt house too. So, unfortunately. On another issue, floodplains and floodways and GIS, and it's a very complicated system and a complicated situation. The 100-year floodplain should probably be renamed to the 2-year floodplain or twice-a-year floodplain because we are seeing floods of that nature much more often. As a part of our examination of the possibility of a greenway running from Standback Forest over to the Salisbury Greenway at the old Moxville Road, I've been doing some studying on that flood area between Hawkinstown Road and Grants Creek and on our side. If you ever look at a drawing that is describing the floodway, actually the creek channel, and then the floodway and the floodplain, what they do is draw this pretty V shape. And in my mind, that's the way I always considered it, until I actually drew out the floodway and floodplain stretching from my house on Pickett Avenue across to Hawkinstown Road. And that flood plain at that particular point is 1,300 feet wide. It's only 10 feet deep. So this drawing of a nice V-shaped figure, it would be as wide as this room and about that deep. So when the areas flood that you're talking about, they're about a foot deep, 2 feet deep. It looks like a lake, but it's very, very shallow. And depending on the level of water in the Yadkin River and High Rock Lake, those areas drain very quickly. Every time we get a serious rain, it floods behind my house, probably just like yours. But within a day or two, all that water's gone. So we are doing things with the studies that the manager told you about. We are aware of places that are a problem. We are aware of the bridges at like 3rd Street and 7th Street that when it really floods, they get overrun with water and they have to close them. That's a bad thing. Good thing is it doesn't last very long. So we'll continue to work on that. I will probably have you a presentation on that Greenway project at your next meeting. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Can you give us an update report on what's happening on Long Ferry Road?
That'll also be included in next month's report, but as you're aware, over the past 2 years or more, we have had a number of projects go through the planning process all the way to the point where the planning was complete. They were approved for what they wanted to do. The only one to date that has broken ground and started progress is the truck stop on the south side of Longs Ferry Road. The project across the street, the Johnson Development, 350,000 square foot distribution center, they seem poised to pull the trigger and move ahead with that at almost any time. Actually, the project on Hackett Street, the old Fisher Lamb site, they are in the process of clearing the old house and possibly moving ahead with one of their buildings on that site. And then on Willow Creek on the east side of I-85, accessed by Longs Ferry Road, I have monthly contact with that developer who is still working to find a tenant for his process. 2 buildings, something over 1 million square feet. And just recently we've had contact with another developer for another piece of property in that area for a multi-story office building. So everything still looks good. Timing-wise, I would have not thought it was going to take this long for it to happen. I've also told you about the impact of the mega site in Randolph County driving some of these processes. If you've watched the national news, not Toyota, but Tesla and a few others that make batteries for cars have actually closed some of their plants because the popularity of electric cars dipped a little bit. Depending on what happens with gas prices, it'll come back up. And Toyota's still moving ahead with their plant, so that's not going to go away. So it's all a matter of the economy and how things go up and down, but all those projects are still viable.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Blunt. As a matter of information, I typically attend the Economic Development Corporation meetings, and we will meet Thursday. And if there's anything that I hear that I can share, I'll be happy to let you know about that.
Okay. Just curious.
And anyone is welcome to attend that. So if you're interested, it's at the Gateway Building on Thursday afternoon at 3:30. Okay. We will now have a report for code enforcement. Chief of File.
Good evening, members of the board. I have submitted the monthly code enforcement report. Things continue to go well with code enforcement currently. We're hoping with these cooler temperatures we'll be able to transition over from the tall grass issues. As you can tell that the report is still full of high grass, and if you look around, it's still no shortage of that out there. So we're still working with the citizens to rectify those issues. One good thing I did want to point out as we're about 3/4 of the way through this year, if you look at our 2024 case totals, we've got about 43% voluntary compliance. So our target was to get 50% compliance this year, was really what we wanted to see. So we're very close to that. If you remember, our code officer's not been here the whole year. So I think ultimately we would have hit that 50% target. We may still actually make that based on the numbers that we're seeing right now. So he's very good about talking people into compliance, which is what we like. And we'd much rather get them voluntarily to comply than have to enforce it on them, make them do it. So I know there was one question last month about a individual line on here that said a falling structure. I did check on that. That is the building beside the Avon store. If you're familiar, there is a white block building that we actually worked with that. If I understand right, James, when he was here, worked with that owner to get the roof removed because it was caving in. They removed the roof and never finished the project. So your new code officer is working with them on trying to figure out what they're going to do with that property, and then we'll make our decision on what direction we want to go with that. It's not necessarily a collapsing structure, but it has no roof on it currently, so it's basically just a 4 walls with nothing inside. That's what that was about. But I will try to answer any code-related questions you may have.
Are there any questions? Thank you, Chief File. Our police report's next. You want to just stay where you are?
I can go to the easy one that I know about. I provided the monthly police department report. There were 2,629 events this month. Obviously, I included a lot of proactive work by the officers. I continue to really push them on that, which I don't have to push much. They do it on their own. So 330 school checks this month, 495 park checks. I believe we assisted East Spencer about 54 times and about 42 assist with other agencies. So we like to help out where we can be of assistance. And then if you flip over and look at the ACE team report, it was definitely a busy month, keeping in mind that's only 2 units. So they did 70 stops this month. They located 9 wanted individuals, guns off the street like usual, drugs off the street. I just pulled a lab report right before I came in here, which would have been added to this report, but this report was printed before then. So I believe they took 10 fake pills off the street, which is will kind of tell you the extent of what we keep on finding with fentanyl. We took 10 pills off the street that were marked another drug, and they were pure fentanyl. So that is obviously what we would consider a good hit to be able to get that off the street, because who knows what that would have done to somebody. So they were marked hydrocodones, and they were pure fentanyl. So that's an issue, and we're seeing that more and more. So we've had a number of those cases come back, and our lab reports are continuing to come back with more fentanyl-related. When the labs send the reports back, it's showing more and more fentanyl being in there. So definitely an issue that we have. It's not our community; it's the state and the country overall. So they're doing a very good job for it and getting it off the street and keeping it pushed out. So we're very happy their overdose numbers are low. So I think what we're doing here is working. But I will try to answer any questions you may have about police department operations.
You have any questions?
Can you give us a report on this incident that happened a week ago Friday?
Yes, a little limited. It does involve juveniles, so I'm a little bit limited in what I'll release on that. But yeah, we had an incident where one of our ACE team cars actually pulled a vehicle over. 2 individuals jumped out of the seat. They were armed with pistols. Obviously, we gave chase. It worked out. It was kind of a good, bad situation, if you'll bear with me on that terminology. We have 4 units working at the museum off duty because of the Thomas the Tank event. So there were a lot of units in the area. So there were 2 units on the road. They took off chasing the individual into the wooded area. The 4 of us that were I was actually working that event at the museum. So 4 of us responded. We locked the museum down. We locked the school down as a precautionary measure. I had them detour. There was supposed to be a homecoming parade, so we kind of delayed and detoured that. then we requested the county to bring a K-9 in to track the individual. We did locate the gun, and I believe we have a pretty good line of who the individuals may be. But I really can't release a whole lot more than that. But definitely good cooperation between the different entities that were involved, and we appreciate the assistance we have from outside agencies. It kind of got, I met with Kelly over at the museum on Sunday, and we kind of got into a thank you session of me thanking her and her thanking me. So that's not something the museum per se trains for, right? We train with our schools quite often on lockdowns. Not something we really do with the museum. It's not something you typically think would have to occur, but it went off as flawless as you could expect. So if you can imagine anybody that saw that event, how many children were around there, we were able to lock the museum down very quickly. Get everybody pushed inside, everybody locked in. Everybody that was on the train was locked on the train, which is not necessarily a bad problem because the kids had no idea what was going on. So they just got to stay on a little bit longer train ride. So worked out as good as it could be. And like I said, we did recover the weapons. So another weapon off the street.
Thank you very much.
I had someone who was working at Thomas the Train, and she said they were ordered to go to their cars immediately, and they did, and that worked very well. The other question I had, were they able to have their homecoming parade? How did
I believe they delayed it. I actually do not know. I stayed committed on that issue over at the museum. We actually provided additional security for them for the remainder of the evening after that. So I didn't go to that myself, but to my understanding, they did. I believe they just delayed it and then turned it up and went up a different street. So we kind of had them push it over a block off the main street or off Salisbury Avenue.
Yeah, I had seen a complaint online that they weren't able to have their parade, and I thought that it had been detoured. So.
Right. Yeah, that's my understanding. I did not follow up on that afterwards. My understanding is they delayed. I believe they put it over on South Grand Avenue is what I understood they were going to do with it. But yeah, with the amount of law enforcement there was no way they could come up Salisbury Avenue.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Fire Chief Lanning?
Welcome back, sir.
I much enjoy this atmosphere a lot better. How are y'all this afternoon?
Good. How are you?
So you have my written report before you. First thing I wanted to circle back to Mr. Bish's comments and questions. So the current incident or emergency action plan for the town was last updated in 2012. That was a conversation we had about a month ago, myself and Mr. Franzese, that, hey, it needs to be updated. So with that, it's just going to be an overall mitigation plan, including evacuation routes, hazard mitigation, emergency shelters. The one thing that I personally identified in the last week, being in Western North Carolina, is what is the plan of notification when cell towers, internet, phone, everything goes down, right? Because we have all of these contingencies built in. We really haven't thought about that. Shy of door-to-door, handing people papers in person, that's really the only way that we had up in the western part of the state to notify people of changes and what was happening. In the meantime, while we're updating that, I'm working with Rowan County Emergency Management. Anything that we currently don't have will default back to theirs. So as the board, as our citizens, rest assured that we will be covered with plans in place if something was to happen while we update our current plan for the town. Positive note, our new engine was delivered to Charlotte yesterday. So Thursday afternoon, myself, Chief Lewis, Mr. Franzese, and Joel are going to travel to Charlotte. We're going to look at it. I've got to take some stuff to get mounted. So we'll take a little sightseeing trip. Ideally, 1 to 2 weeks, it will be here in town. A couple other things that have to happen prior to that. 752 in our squad and staff are currently in Western North Carolina still. The plan was to be a 14-day deployment. However, we got notice yesterday that they are demobilizing our strike team that we were a part of for various different reasons, and we'll just leave it at that. But there very much are still needs there, so thoughts and prayers for the western part of our state are definitely still needed. Fire prevention open house. Unfortunately, due to everything going on, we're going to cancel that. It'll be rescheduled for the spring. Plan to make it a little bit bigger than what it was going to be at a half effort this weekend. So still have that plan for the future. Other than that, I do not believe I have any other new information for you. I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions?
Appreciate all the hard work and dedication that you and your department are doing, but also too, I wanted to ask the question, in reference to the coffee with the chiefs, are y'all gonna be doing that again, or?
We will.
I know
Yep.
some residents
So I
were
know-
asking as well.
Yep,
school
and it
officials.
is much my fault. We had taken a break from that. The goal was we were doing that monthly, and we had it, well, about the time that we were discussing adding staffing, kind of have a round table. The goal with that is to try to kick that back off quarterly. And we're playing with some times. It was always the Tuesday of the board meeting at 9 a.m. Started realizing that participation was very low, and a large part of that may be that the people of the community they're at work or they're unavailable. So we may do the first one at, let's say, 6 o'clock at Town Hall or at the fire station, and just kind of play with that and see what works best.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Again, thank you for what you did.
Most definitely.
You and your people.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Lanning, sorry. Public Works Director, Mr. Taylor.
Good evening, members of the board. Just a few quick notes from us. The leaf pack will begin running this week. So from now until the end of the year, no more baggage. I mean, you can put bags out if you want, but you don't have to. We will be getting those up with the leaf bag. So we did have the mulch giveaway on Saturday. We delivered 16 loads to residents here in town, which was pretty good for the fall. Normally our fall is a little low, but we did fairly well. Had 2 residents actually come and get, and we have 3 loads still to deliver. For some,
not for me.
Not for her. She got her one, but
we've
been coordinating with someone that. Anyway, we had a communication error, so we'll get that taken care of the rest of this week. Contractors for Duke, they're still working on the grid lines here in town, but they have been reassigned. I don't know exactly where they are. Could be Florida, could be anywhere. So when they come back, everything is still working as it was. They left it in good shape, but I don't think they've transitioned to the new lines in some of the areas yet. So everything, but they will be back. They're on the way. What else we have here? During the storm, our infrastructure did very well. We had just a couple normal places, nothing outlandish. And it was real quick up, quick down. I couldn't really expected anything better, to be honest. 17 went out for about an hour and then went right back in. So that kind of is what we expected. But we'll be working with Chief Lang to get this emergency action plan back together and see what's going on with it. The update on the second street. I talked to Matt yesterday. The grates and everything that were ordered, he's looking at a 2-week lead time. So should be in the next 2 weeks. We'll just see. He said if it comes in sooner, we'll get to work sooner. But he has to have that manhole first. He has to have something stationary to be able to tie to. So as soon as he gets that, now he'll be probably dropping pipe, maybe some other supplies over on site during that time. But as soon as he gets that, the major component, then he'll be moving on and getting it taken care of. I know Mr. Muhammad has a couple questions last Thursday night about the paving schedules.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We did in the last paving, we did the lower end of 4th Street, which would have been Grants to McCubbins. That's Grant Street to McCubbins Avenue. The remainder of 4th Street is not, the earliest one is in about a 40th position on 4th Street. Now, that is not to say that it has to stay there. Okay, there are situations. I know last year we did go through and kind of got some quotes to reprioritize, because every few years you really need to do that and get that number, because conditions change. They do. They change. So, not saying that that's where it's going to stay. That's just where it is at the present time. Okay. Now the Spencer Avenue between 8th and 9th is in the top 20. So that one is actually a lot closer to it than 4th Street is. So that was just, but like I said, in the next year we can prioritize, or there are issues like the one on 4th Street that we did before. It's just it's a piece that we can pull to make that project bigger without relocating. Does that make sense? Mobilization is where the money is. If you can keep them from having to move from point A to point B, you can get a lot more paving for that mobilization fee. So that's what we try to do. So if there's a piece we can pull in, you know, and be right in that area, and it's in that top 50, well, yeah, let's go ahead and just do that piece. So there's another way it could possibly happen sooner, or the priorities could change. I mean, we don't ever know what that is. And the more they build, the busier the road, the more it goes. So there's all kinds of factors in that, but it will. I'm good. Did I answer your question?
Okay, now, as far as the sinkhole, that's part of the Second Street.
Yes, that's being worked on now.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that'll be corrected before the end of the month.
So I just wanted to make sure that that was reiterated as well.
Oh, yes.
Because I know some residents have some concerns about that as well.
Okay. Yeah, Second Street will be corrected before the end of the, well, I hope before the end of the month. You're giving on supplies. I'm just going there, and weather. We have to kind of play that into factor as well. But I hope to have it done before, what would that be, November? I hope to have it done and complete.
I think I have one more question, Mr. Taylor. In reference to the bad weather that we've been getting and with the fall coming in, are we working with the city of Salisbury to make sure that drains are going to stay clear? You know, what's the plan for that?
As far as
making sure that
we clear our own drains.
Okay. So as far as all the debris with the bad weather, so that's just going to be taken care of by us?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, if it's in our city limits, we'll be the ones taking care of that as far as our storm drains being cleared. You know, pipes, there are certain ones that we do check a lot, 17th Street being one of them, because it's prone to flood. So we want to make sure that those pipes are clear. Now, I do sometimes, you know, coordinate with Salisbury if I need the camera. They will come and camera lines for me, you know, if we need them. But a lot of times, we had one on 17th that way. We had a piece of wood that got stuck sideways in there. We could not find it. Did not know where to dig. I mean, I hate to dig up a whole man's yard to try to figure out where this is. But they found it and were able to knock it loose, and we washed it out. So we didn't even have to dig it up. So there is some coordination with Salisbury if we need help.
Yes, sir.
Or anything else. Randy's very willing, so we're good.
Thank you.
On that aspect. Yes, sir. You're welcome. One last piece of news. We met with the DOT today about Salisbury paving. Do I need to give the date, Anna? Or does it matter? Or would you like to?
No, please go ahead.
October 21st is the date that they're saying they will be here milling the road. So, other than that, I really don't know that much. Other than the fact that we did meet about some changes, you know, that will be going on in the restriping and that kind of stuff. But they had their whole crew here. Everybody seemed to be satisfied when we left. So,
and it sounds like the work will be measured in weeks and not months.
Yes. They're saying 10 days, weather permitting, is what the foreman said today. That for Russell would be 10 days. He could do it in 10 days, weather permitting. So they will be, all the work will be done tonight. They'll be starting at 8 o'clock or later if we have an issue or something, but they say roughly 8. They'll mill through the night, and then they're going to mill everything first and then come back and pave. Now, that wasn't the original plan. The original plan was to mill and pave. But now that they've changed some widths on them, I think they're just going to mill everything first. So all of that will come out, and then they'll pave right behind it. Everything at night.
And we might remind citizens too that if they have an issue or any question, they can go to the website and put that into our link that directs things immediately to the department that it belongs to.
Correct. Correct. And then we'll pass it along to whoever we need to. The foreman was very nice and easy to deal with today. I don't think there'll be an issue. Nathan Russell, NTJ, is actually who's doing the work. We've worked with them before in the past on our paving, so it seems to be, they've got their ducks in a row.
Was it that, or was it JT?
It was JT Russell, but now Jimmy works for Nathan, which is his son. It's a family business. So we've worked with them roundabout in numerous pavings. So they're very good and very, very quick, and they do well. So.
Are we still good with our dam the Chicken Springs Dam?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it's still, still doing exactly what it was doing before. We started the siphon 3 days before the storm. Got it down as low as we can possibly get it, actually, until the siphon stopped. And we have to let it go sometimes when it stops. It'll take about a week for it to get back up to where we can actually get the siphon started again. But we started it about 3 days before, had it all the way down as far. It did not breach over the top like it has in the past. It still did get a little bit wet. It did get full, but it pumped right back down. So we're okay right now. I mean, it's still going to need some work, but we're keeping an eye more on the blister than we are the overtopping. Because if it washes that side, then keep it on. Yes, sir.
I don't know if this is a question I should ask the town manager or not, but as far as the roads, the funding for the power bill, what's the status?
As far as the money?
When that's going to be?
Okay, we get 2 allotments from the power bill every year. We get half at one point in time. I don't know the exact dates. That would be another question, but October and January.
No matter of the timing though, we programmed in our budget this year what we expect to receive through the power bill, and what we programmed in terms of expenditures has to do with the Second Street project for this year.
Okay.
So typically we don't get enough power bill revenues to, for example, have $2 million each year coming in that we can do a bunch of paving. It takes us a few years of saving up to get enough revenue to then let a decent contract that we can get and so it's not for us typical that we would resurface street segments every year. And we did our last one about a year ago. So we're in this process now where we're working to save up for a few years.
And the Second Street put it in this one this year.
Yes.
For the repairs we have to do. So there's going to be a little bit longer in between pavings.
Now, I'll note that other communities choose to put forth their local dollars into resurfacing. If you're a community that your penny on the tax rate generates $1 million or $2 million, then you can say we're going to dedicate a penny of our rate towards resurfacing every year, and then you have magically another $1 million to go towards the cause. Here in Spencer, our penny is worth about $37,000. So we would have to dedicate a lot of pennies of our tax rate to make for our penny, it would take about 3 or 4 of our pennies to equal what we get in power bill revenues each year. And then even at that, we don't really see it that we can use that amount of money to do a contract each year. That just gives you an idea on the scale.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
How much, and Ms. Host's question is a fair question. I mean, we do have some rough spots. When I got on the board 3 years ago, Fifth Street was top of my mind because Fifth Street is just about undrivable. It's a little bit better since I think SRU came and fixed that intersection, which is but I mean, how much does aging infrastructure with stuff that the town did literally the 1920s or 1930s? What role does that play? I mean, that seems like that would be a pretty big deal with like stormwater, aging, sewer. How does that impact our roads? I mean,
big time.
Yes.
Yeah, especially sewer and infrastructure, because anytime you get any failure whatsoever or typical failure, it doesn't have to be a complete failure. Any pipe that's got a crack that starts to pull dirt, you're going to see it. And some of the roads, you can look at Second Street, the asphalt's about this thick with about this much gravel under it. It's not even a standard. It's not a road by standards now. It's just some asphalt thrown on top of a dirt road. But, and we have a lot of older streets in town that way. So it plays a big role in it as far as the age of the infrastructure. Sewer, water, we've discussed the water issue today because they were saying, because we have some AC pipe in town, old AC pipe, and it's You know, they come through with milling machines and they come through with vibratory packers and stuff like that on this road. You know, we warned Randy when the date was gonna be to get his tools ready, because it will jar them loose. And then that causes even a bigger problem for the paving guys, you know, when they have to wait on the water.
And I think if we know about it, if it happens before they do the paving, I guess that's the best case, because they can fix it, pave over it. That some of the issues with the quality of your ride and going over these patches is the patches just don't, the quality of the patch job, nothing, no disrespect to the folks doing the patching, but I think some of the compaction and some of the subsurface things over time don't stand up to if you're just going to build a new road, right? So it's just and the more, you know, a lot of those issues you see are service cuts or maintenance issues, or every
water lines,
every interruption in the water and sewer system turns into a kind of a scar on the road.
It makes a weak spot.
Can I make a suggestion? Since we're getting a lot of static or bad publicity about street paving and everything else, I would like to make sure we educate our public when they do pave the streets out there. That's not us. That is the state. That's not us at local. So we don't have any jurisdiction over that. It's not like we're putting that over top of these other streets, but let people.
It's certainly needed on top of our
I know that, but still, like I said, a little good publicity helps a little bad publicity.
That would definitely help with transparency as well.
Yeah.
Well, and I'd also like to thank you for the transparency of you have really kept up reminding us about how we save up as a small community for our repaving plan, because I feel like the bad publicity about paving comes back and back and back, while also concerned about our tax rates. You know, there are reasons and that we have to save up, and we are a smaller community. So I just thank you for your continued updates and reminders on that for us as a Fifth Street resident who bumps around. Listen, $37,000 isn't a lot, so.
I think it should also be known to some of these, like Mr. Muhammad. We did a study here a couple of years ago. We had an outside contractor come in and evaluate all the streets in Spencer and rated them 1 to 10 or whatever. Right there they are. And that's how we approve basically what streets need to be paved. So it's not our decision. It's not Mr. Taylor's decision. It's already done in this study. So this is carefully done. Now, if something happens, like an emergency, sure, that comes first. But generally, we look at the worst streets and try to pave those streets first. Okay?
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. And Mr. Taylor, thank you for bringing that. But and also too, just like I said, continue to make that transparent for the residents, so there won't be any confusion or questioning in reference to what the town is doing and what the Department of Transportation has, allocated for as well. So that way, a lot more things will be clear to the residents. That's, thank you.
Yes, sir. You're welcome. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Mr.
Thank
Taylor.
you, Mr. Taylor. Our next person on the list is our finance officer, Heather Kahn.
Thanks, Steve.
I'm back.
Thanks for being here.
So on my report, I made a couple of notes at the bottom to where we adjusted the budget on a couple of the revenues. You'll see on page 1, 10-3197-102, the municipal vehicle tax. That's the $10 fee that we implemented this budget year. And originally I had put it in with the vehicle taxes. So I separated that out so we track that. You'll see that on Fund 10 and also on Fund 20, because $5 went to the general fund and $5 went to Powell bill. And as we're talking about Powell bill, if you look at Fund 20, the top of the page is 1 of 1. It'll show you there the revenues that we received for Powell bill. And this year we've received one of our disbursements, which was $67,451.36. We'll get that again in January. So just wanted to make you aware since everyone's talking about it. There was also a couple changes from the report that you received on Thursday versus today because there were a couple of POs that were not posted. So I want to make you guys aware of that. And that's noted at the bottom of the pages. And last but not least, there is in the fire budget, the overtime there. I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that we did have a meeting about that, and it's probably gonna look a little bit out of whack because they were deployed for a little bit, just because we will get reimbursed for that. So
Okay.
I'm gonna make you aware of it before.
Right.
Is there any questions about the report?
Would that reimbursement be FEMA money? Okay, and
Well,
how,
no, because because what there was the state, right?
This
They were
deployment was
deployed
through
to
the
the
state
state.
fire marshal's.
Oh, that's
office.
right.
So, I guess
I
it's
think
soon to be
it'll be state.
determined where the
Right.
funds come from, but we're still working through that.
are there any questions?
How's sales tax looking so far? Is it?
It looks stable. Some of the reports that I've gotten, there's some growth there, but with as small as we are, I don't see that it's impacting us as much as some of the larger municipalities. So I see it as stable for us because we budgeted about a 2.5%, and that's where I foresee it because we're right about there now.
And it's allocated based on per capita, is that right?
Part of it, yes.
So if we can just grow our population.
Part is per capita, part is for sales.
Point of sale by county is part of it.
Yes.
Uh,
A little bit of both.
so
So don't shop in Forsyth County.
That's right.
That's right.
If you pump your gas here in Rowan County, it helps more than going elsewhere to pump your gas.
Right.
Our library report will be given by Anna Ward.
Good evening. So Beverly, our librarian, Ms. McCroshy, is actually in the mountains on this past Saturday for, she had gone up on Friday, right before everything started to go a little crazy, and she was thankfully far enough away that it wasn't impacted too much, but she had gone up for her annual Get Lit conference at the Mitford Museum, and they were able to still have their sessions on Saturday. It was there wasn't power, so it was by candlelight, but she was still able to make some really great contacts, and thankfully got back safely. And she is actually planning something for October 15th, some fall crafts for the kids, and this past month had been a little slower because of coming off of the summer reading program. So keep an eye out for those future events.
And I noticed that she's going to have 2 writers on November 19th.
Yes, she's still in the works with that, but
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Ward. Our town manager, Mr. Francis, would you care to address this board?
That'd be my pleasure. Thank you. Yes, so I wanted to first give you a bit of an update on our park construction project. Now that we've started digging, as everyone can see, but just to give you some frames of reference about that, the first part of the project is really about demolition, getting the site ready, and then they are quickly going to start working on the building itself. And so they've basically done all the site work that they are going to at this point, and they're now focused on the building. And so the next few things are going to be like getting the foundation ready and the site, the building utilities, and some of those things just about the building, and not doing any further really site digging or excavation because there's a lot of stone in there that they are, and I think it's really smart, they're leaving it so it doesn't turn into a mud hole over the winter. And so that building work is going to take place basically, now through the rest of the project, but the site work is going to be on hold until January. And then the rest of the site grading will start again, and then it'll get into the overall site utilities, storm drainage, all the other stuff. And then, but their current plan is to get into the landscaping. And we just got the schedule today with all these details, but they're going to be getting into the landscaping by the current schedule by April, which is good. That means we won't be trying to deal with things getting planted in June and July. So very impressed so far with the team from Ike's, and it's gotten off to a great start. I don't know how many trucks it took to take the asphalt away, but it happened pretty quickly. And today they were starting to bring some new dirt back to start setting up the building pad. They said they're going to need to bring it up, I think, 2 or 3 feet to create the foundation there where the way that building is going to sit. So any questions about the park project? All right. And the other thing I wanted to mention, and hopefully y'all got to review some of the materials I've shared about this, but Centralina is applying for a federal HUD Pro Housing Grant, which is an innovative new opportunity to HUD Pro Housing means pathways to removing obstacles to housing. And so Centralina is interested in including Spencer on a regional grant application that would take place over 6 years. And it has the potential to bring some innovative capacity to us in a number of ways. And we have had discussions at a staff level about it and feel like it would be appropriate for us to join. And what that means for us in terms of resources, because they're interested in what they call leverage commitments from communities that are part of it. And for us, that would be in-kind staff time. We value the staff time commitment that we think it could be about 40 hours a month spread across various staff members over those 6 years. So when you total that up, that leveraged commitment is over 100,000 or so to go towards the overall grant program. So if there's any questions or concerns about that, some of us were involved in some discussions with Centralina about that, but if there are no concerns about that, then what we'll do next is submit a letter of commitment to Centralina so they can include in their grant application. They have published an initial draft of a grant, and it's actually on their website. You can kind of look into more details of what they're thinking about with the program. But we would hope they'd be able to include Spencer in their final application.
What would the practical impact be for the town and for the residents? What are we getting back, I guess?
Sure. So some of the projects that they've talked about include general things like outreach and education about how to support the production and preservation of these innovative housing types. But we think there are potentially a few projects here in town that could emerge. And Steve, you had an interesting idea of one. I don't know if you wanted to share a little bit of what you had thought about as a potential pilot idea.
They had asked us for pilot ideas for pilot projects in our individual community. And they also, one of the points they were trying to do is make sure our development ordinance wasn't a hindrance to creating innovative types of housing. And this is really not low-income housing. This is more mid-income housing. Teachers, police officers, fire departments, planners, we need to be able to afford to live in your town too. I'll throw Jay in there, attorneys. Or Jay. So, Jay's one of those rich attorneys. But the idea that you've seen the plan for the Yadkin River District and the brand new high density mix of housing types that would go there, that certainly supports the concept. But right next door to that is the old Yadkin Village. And it's an area of to some degree, depressed housing, housing in need of renovation, fixing up, cleaning up, and then some infill lots there. That area is not currently in our ETJ, but we have talked to Rowan County about allowing us to make that a part of our ETJ. At the staff level, they agree with that philosophy. If it were in our ETJ, we might use the Yadkin Village renovation as a pilot project, and then use the resources from this program to help those residents and property owners to redevelop their property in a way that's complementary to the Yadkin River District development. It's always visually been disturbing in my mind that we're going to build this nice shiny new thing down at the river, something we're all proud of, and right next door to it is going to be a fairly rundown older neighborhood. There's some good housing stock in there, and there's a lot of good people in there. They just need some help to make their housing a little bit better.
And one of the outcomes that Central Line envisions with, because they have several different activities and services, but with the pilot project piece of it, they specifically, I think, will be able to provide a few things. One being grant writing assistance, so you can get some dollars to do some of these things, but also some additional planning capacity. We just did a big. We had some funding to help us do the small area plan, overall there at the Yadkin River District, and so perhaps Central Line would be able to come in and drill in a little closer on what Steve just talked about and come up with a more specific plan, for example. So those are resources that they would be able to bring to the table that we could partner with them, and then it wouldn't be us, just having to hire a consultant to do the same kind of work.
Are there any questions? Anybody have questions? Does this, Mr. Francis, does this require any action on our part?
No, I just wanted to make sure there was consensus and no concerns. We don't need action at this time.
Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anything else? Anybody have any questions? Okay, so it's time now then for requests and comments by the board members. Mr. Muhammad, let me start with you, since there's nobody beside you.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say I appreciate the residents that have attended, that have addressed public comment, as well as other comments in reference to issues within the town. Thank you again for the department heads and your workers for all the dedication to the town and abroad. And hopefully more residents will tune in to the live or come to the meetings so that they are abreast, so we can continue to project a level of transparency so that there will be no assumptions in reference to things that are occurring within the town, be it funds that we're using from grants, or if it's something that another entity is doing. That way residents, you all will be informed. And I just want to say thank you again for you all coming out.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad. Mr. Miller?
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Slade. I'd like, we've talked the last couple of weeks about what's been going on in the mountains and all the disaster situations, and I appreciate everybody's interest in that. I appreciate the support from the police department and our fire department. But we almost had a disaster here in Spencer that we don't talk about. Mr. Taylor kind of handled it for us. We had the 2nd Street cave in. As far as that goes, the street kind of caved in on us. with all this rain because of the backup of all the water coming off 3rd and 4th Street. What happened eventually was a sewer line collapsed on 2nd Street. And with the help of Mr. Taylor, his crews, and the crews from Salisbury Rowan Utilities, they were able to put the sewer line back together. I think they worked after 9 o'clock that night, didn't they, Mr. Taylor? We had the fire department down there pumping water, trying to relieve the situation. So it was a near disaster that we need to thank our staff for what they did, because they did an outstanding job and they went overtime, and I appreciate their efforts from both of those groups.
Ms. Moody?
Well, tough acts to follow. I did want to wish our residents a happy National Hispanic Heritage Month. We kind of go from September 15th to October 15th, so I guess it's 2 half months. But I wanted to thank everyone involved and who was able to come out for the town park groundbreaking. That was really exciting, and it was great to see our community out. And I really wanted to, I'm going to put Mr. Bish on the spot, really want to thank our residents who come to meetings, who participate. And I wanted to say I really appreciate you for coming with really clear suggestions and ideas that have you can tell your positivity and your community-oriented personality, which I thank you for always coming when you can and sharing with us that. And I always have my notes when you're here. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And we love to see the community at meetings who can make it. We all understand it, but I know there's people who listen at home, and I know meetings are not always scheduled when it's convenient for some, but you'll never please everyone, just doing the best we all can, and thanks for coming.
Mr. Howell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think first I just appreciate our folks at the fire department and Chief Lanning and everyone in the town, our employees and staff who've helped out with the mountain, the relief of the mountains. I'm sure those folks appreciate it. And I'll say, it's my personal view, working in government myself, that, I think we all know that this is the tip of the iceberg, just helping these people get started, getting back on their feet. This is not the end of the game. I know some of the conversations I've been in on my side of things is that, yes, they need blankets and food and power and all those things right now, just to kind of feel like there's some minor sense of normalcy. But in the future, there are places they can't even run the government. They don't know where their employees are. They can't do HR. They can't run payroll. They can't, so all of those things, I'd say, Mr. Franzese, any way we can help moving forward, not just with our fire and police and with our Mr. Taylor, but any way we can help, I think we absolutely should do so. If we can spare them here, let's make sure we help out to the maximum extent we can, because I think we ended up being very, very lucky with the storm. I think in the time I've been alive, we've had a couple of hurricanes, a tornado here, a couple of really big fires, an earthquake a few years back. It wasn't that bad here, but it was still happened. So I mean, we've been pretty lucky. And who knows, at some point in the future, we may be the ones needing help. So I think any way we can help out, we absolutely should. And I really appreciate the fire department for doing that. And you guys stay safe, and again, help out any way you can. I think to all of us, non-superhero folks with the fire department, any way we can help. I think Mr. Franzese told me they're going to take more stuff up in the coming weeks. So if you're listening to this, or anyone here in this room, we've already at home started thinking about ways we can go out and get some stuff when we go to Sam's, get an extra case of water or whatever it is, so we can, when you guys do make another run, we can get stuff up to those folks. I think I don't honestly, I haven't looked at the calendar. I should know. I don't know we're here between now and November, but go vote. Doesn't matter who you vote for, but go vote. Have your say in American democracy. It's how this is supposed to work. If you're mad about the news, regardless of which news station you listen to, go vote. Mr. Bish and Ms. Hovis, really appreciate you guys coming, talking to us. I absolutely agree. I think we need to maybe look at, as we move budgeting next year, look at trying to do something with the roads faster than the PAL bill, but it's expensive. I think we did $250,000 PAL bill last year and it got, what, four or five roads? Parts of 4 or 5 roads. I mean, it's expensive. $250,000 doesn't go very far. But we have a great fire department. We have a great police department. We have wonderful staff with our public works and here in the town. They're going out and getting millions upon millions of dollars of grant money. That's free for us. It's maybe not free for someone somewhere else, but it's free for us. And they're working hard and people recognizing it. Everywhere I go outside, I hear people say, "Oh man, you're from Spencer. You guys got something great going on down there." And or they come to the Transportation Museum and they know about Thomas or they're I was somewhere totally unrelated. They asked me about the park. They'd seen the groundbreaking, and so I realized there are always things to do better. I know I wish Fifth Street were a little bit better. If nothing else for you, Aaron. But but we have it pretty good, and our tax dollars do go far. And we spent, with Mr. Miller's help, we spent an inordinate amount of time with budgeting, trying to make every dollar go as far as we could make it. And there's always things you can do better. And hopefully in March and April and May we'll do better next year. If you have ways of that we can do better, come tell us, and we'll listen. But I really appreciate everyone. You guys are amazing. And like I said, I'm just glad that we're here and the lights are on, the power's working, and our cell phones are here. And that we could be way worse off.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. I had written a few comments as well for tonight. We are 8 days away from early voting here at Town Hall. October the 17th through November the 2nd, the polls will be here for early voting. Weekdays from 8 a.m. until 7:30 p.m., Saturdays 8 a.m. until 3 p.m., Sundays 1 until 5 p.m. Election day is November the 5th, right here, from 6:30 a.m. until 7:30 p.m. And I, like Mr. Howell, would encourage every citizen to exercise your right to vote. There are people who have worked and bled for our right to vote. And as a citizen, it is your responsibility to take that seriously. Check your registration. If you're not registered, if there's anything about your registration that is not correct, you have until 5 p.m. this Friday to register at the Board of Elections. So take a look, be sure that everything is correct for you, and plan to vote. We're just 7 weeks away from Winterfest here in Spencer. And there are lots of spots to volunteer for this fun-filled weekend. It'll be the weekend of December 6th, 7th, and 8th, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Contact Mayor Pro Tem Sechrist or me to sign up to volunteer. It's a lot of fun. It's not a lot of work. And you'll see how much difference that community, this small community, can make for the thousands and thousands of people who come here. And when we call you and ask you to volunteer, please say yes. You can do it in small increments of time, but please say yes and help us out. Our committee is in the process of raising, I believe our budget's $171,000 for this event. So we're working really hard to put that together for the citizens of Rowan County and neighboring communities, plus the people who come to the Polar Express, who come across the street to take advantage of it. I want us to be sure to keep the folks in Florida in our thoughts as they prepare for Milton that's coming ashore, possibly tonight or tomorrow. And certainly keep our North Carolina mountain residents in our prayers as they face the challenges that they have up there. And again, do what you can to help. Every small contribution makes a difference. And I believe that's all I have to say tonight. Is there any need for an executive session tonight? Okay. If not, then it's time for us to call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mr. Mohammed has moved to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Miller, Mr. Miller is seconded. This meeting is adjourned.
Unanimous decision.
Miss
Ms. Sledge.